Hey, Husker fans, welcome to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast with Chris Peterson and Danny Gillette. As always, go Big Red. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. And we're here for a little special edition of the Husker Big Red podcast tonight. And the reason why, if you don't know, is because the Huskers have got a new commitment, Grant Brix. We've been talking about it. We've been thinking about it. We've been wanting it to happen. And it was a rough end of the season, but we've got some good news tonight as Grant Brix has now officially committed to the Huskers. Danny, what do you think about this new pledge in the 2024 class?
As America's favorite cat Garfield likes to say, I hate Mondays. However, I liked today or tonight as Grant Brix committed to Nebraska. I love this commitment. They already have a solid offensive lineman in the class in Preston Tamua. Now they have Grant Brix. I mean, it looked for a little bit like we weren't sure where his commitment was going to go because he kept a very quiet commitment. But now he is in, and that gives Nebraska two bona fide, in my opinion, studs for this 2024 class.
Yeah, definitely. Another, the second top 100 commitment, for Matt Rule in this class, 6'5", 285. It's kind of interesting, on three has him listed as an interior offensive lineman. I think he's a tackle. We actually have some highlights here we can roll up here in just a second. Not a ton of action, just about, 20, 30 seconds. But I think you can just see, what kind of player he is. It shows him kind of drive blocking people off the ball. Another thing I really like about him is his athleticism, for pulling, being able to do some of those, power type of things, and then getting out to the second level, which is another, important part, not just, being able to kind of do that combo block, but being able to get out there and seal off, some of those linebackers and stuff. So he's a really good run blocker. I said on Twitter that I think that people, Nebraska fans, especially, are going to really like this guy. And so yeah, let's tee up this highlight. Let's see what people kind of think about Grant Brix here. So basically, he's the number one player out of Iowa. You can see him there. Just does a nice job of kind of sealing the outside there. And sometimes you don't always get, a great block on the edge. Another block here, just, sealing the guy, driving him off the football. That's kind of what you get with Grant Brix, an elite run blocker. And this is another one we're kind of looking back where he's going and boom, just pancakes a guy. Obviously a linebacker at the second level. Another pancake block there. Some of it's a little bit difficult to see. We can run through it here one more time. What are your thoughts on some of what you've seen from Grant Brix through some of your film study, Danny?
Something that we don't see here, but something I was just looking at actually was his ability to maintain a strong pass block. And what I mean by that is he doesn't, when the play starts and he gets engaged with his defensive lineman, he doesn't start to pedal backwards. He maintains sturdy feet throughout the entire play, and that creates an open pocket for the quarterback. And, I think the aspect of the sturdy feet, technically speaking, is a positive sign because, not only does he show the force like we see in these clips here to push his man back and create holes for running backs and the like, but he also is able to, you know, maintain, that pass blocking protection. And, it's not just that he's fundamentally sound in the run game, he's also fundamentally sound in terms of pass blocking as well. So, in my opinion, he is a player. I mean, every single player can use development, right? Especially, an incoming freshman and things like that. But when I was writing about him for HuskerBigRed.com, which I'll publish in a little bit, actually, I wrote that he was a very solid fundamental player, which means to me that I could see him starting maybe in short order. There isn't a ton of holes in his game to where I would say, oh, this guy's going to be a project player. He's the type of guy that I believe can, play right away.
Definitely, I think as a guy, because you're not always going to play just five offensive linemen, as we learned this year. That rarely happens. You need 8, 9 good ones most of the time, and so I think he'll get a chance here. I wanted to stop the highlight here while you were talking. And this is kind of an interesting because this isn't a play where Grant Brix is necessarily driving someone off the ball, but as you can see, they're running a little toss play to the running back, and his the most important thing a lineman has, outside of his initial kind of his hand placement and that kind of shot, and that you're getting into people is your footwork. And his footwork here, you can just see he's got his backs. He's already got this guy sealed, so he's got the edge sealed. And now you can kind of see how it's opening things up. You've got this edge here, and it's all because he just did a great job of kind of sealing that edge and getting his man to the outside to kind of create that lane there. So yeah, he's a really athletic guy, and I like having people like that where you can
He
move
finished
and
that play too that we just saw too. Sorry, but he finished that play. If you saw at the end there, he immediately, finished that play. Pushed down his guy, and he didn't give up. He finished until the whistle blew, and that to me stood out as well.
yeah, and then he was looking for somebody else to block too. He chucked his guy out of the way, and basically realizing that he's neutralized him as a threat to the running back, and then he's trying to get upfield to block somebody else, and that's where you can get those big plays happening, and that's pretty elite. You don't usually see offensive linemen that are that quite that athletic. Here's another clip. We'll try to slow it down, but I just like you can see him getting off the getting off the ball, getting to a double team, and trying to get to the second level. And that's what you see again here too. You can see him at the tackle position, and he goes all the way across the field to
Yep.
get a block, and it turns into extra yardage. So,
And he's
you know,
incredibly athletic for an offensive lineman too. I mean, you're seeing it more and more these days. Just these linemen's quick feet and the ability to move, and that's what you need in today's game of explosive offenses. And I think, this coaching staff has done a good job of identifying linemen like that because I think that Preston Tamua is the same way as well. So it's good to see Brix kind of, has that same sort of skill set.
Yeah, it's been good to see Preston, get some playing time at the end of the year. He had an injury, but both of these guys, I think, as you mentioned, are going to have an opportunity to play, fairly early. It'll be interesting to see if Grant, ends up enrolling, as a mid-year enrollee. I mean, that would be really great if they could both do that. But you always want as many of those guys as possible to get into spring ball. We saw how, that helped some guys last year, but correct me if I'm wrong, though, but Cameron Leonard wasn't one of those guys, and he still had a pretty solid freshman season. So it doesn't, if you can play, you can play. It doesn't always matter if you get enrolled in time for spring ball or not.
I believe Cam play during spring ball? I don't remember. I believe he. I
I
believe
just can't remember. So maybe then maybe that's not the best example, but I know Malachi Coleman didn't, and he still made an impact this season. So
Well, though, although
that's
I
at
will
least
say
one
to your
guy.
example on Lenhart, he committed in January and he was on the field, by September, in the same calendar year. So that still shows how quickly, some of these players can make an impact. Same thing with Malachi as part of the class and Jalen Lloyd, who I think is going to have a big year. I don't want to get too far off topic, but it's really encouraging that Nebraska is able to get some of these recruits who, are not only good players, but they can make an impact right away. We saw a lot of that this year, actually, and that's not something that in recent years the program has been able to do. So I think Brix could be somebody who gets on the field in short order and can make an impact rather quickly.
Yeah, and so to touch on this entire 2024 class, now that we're about 3 weeks away from National Signing Day, early National Signing Day, I should say. But right now in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings, which they take the most into account, Nebraska is ranked number 20 right now in the class, which is pretty solid. They'll probably be. It's going to be hard for them to move much above that range because they got a pretty big bump in Grant Brix, which is justified. I mean, he's their second highest ranked commitment right now. I think he's 85 overall, I want to say, maybe 81. But still, the number 5 offensive tackle in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. And I think another big thing to look at, Nebraska has 26 commitments total, but 8 of those guys are blue chip prospects, 4-star prospects or higher in the composite rankings. So that really shows that Matt Rhule is bringing in, big time talent. I mean, Roger Gradney, Carlin Jones, Mario Buford. I'm trying to think. Carter Nelson is in that mix. Davon Hall.
Ja'Cory Barney.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Barney, and then obviously, Preston Tamua and Grant Brix, and then
Brix is
so
a
and then you
91, by
also
the way.
have guys that are right outside the, like Caleb Benning. I mean, Daniel Kalen's in the top 600 as a 3-star. Isaiah McMorris is in the top 5. So you've got a lot of guys that are right around that, pretty high, like pretty high ranking 3-star players where, you see a lot of those type of guys play in the NFL. So I think this is a really good class. And you look at what Matt Rule has already done with, Princewell, Mamalian, and Lenhart, and some of those other offensive line uh, commitments, or I guess, signees at this point, players on the roster, freshmen. There's a good base around this program. And so I think that it does give something for fans to be optimistic about. Now we got to find a quarterback in the portal, but
Absolutely.
if they can do that, Matt Rule's right about the fact that he's building a strong base. I think Rayola and Terrence Knighton, for years, Nebraska has struggled with their offensive and defensive line coaches. And, you know, I don't love Marcus Satterfield right now. I'm not saying he should get fired, but he hit on a couple of those hires. And I guess we should mention that San Diego State is focusing on Sean Lewis as their head coach. It sounds like that's going to happen. So unless there's another team out there that's trying to take Tony White as their head coach, or an NFL team, I think he's going to be back next year. I don't see him leaving for a college defensive coordinator job.
And quite honestly, I think if he was, I think a guy like Ty Robinson wouldn't come back for a sixth season. And I know Robinson's position coach is Terrence Knighton, obviously, but I believe if Robinson, thought that White wasn't coming back, he wasn't going to come back to Nebraska. But I mean, just kind of looking at this class overall, and you talk about like, the impact players and kind of what this class has been able to do. Carter Nelson, top player in the state of Nebraska. Brix, top player in the state of Iowa. Preston Tamua, second overall player in the state of Hawaii. Kalen, second overall player in the state of Nebraska. McMorris, third overall player in the state of Nebraska. So they're getting, high value players, that still may fly a little bit under the radar in terms of a national level. Now, granted, the 2024 class, is getting a ton of exposure at the national level, but Nebraska's done a nice job of, trying to get premium players at, positions of need. And, I think, Brix certainly adds to that. And this 2024 class, and I've said this before, this class will define the rest of Matt Rule's tenure at Nebraska.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially if you loop in the transfer quarterback to, because that is technically part of the 20, like Jeff Sims is technically part of the 2023 class. If you look at, like the the recruiting sites and stuff, that's how they kind of calculate it. So you're definitely right, because they need to hit on these guys. And I think they have a lot of core players in this recruiting class, and hopefully they can add a quarterback. There's still obviously you know, some work to do in this class. I think at running back,
There's a
especially.
lot of quarterbacks out there now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a ton of quarterbacks, and I wrote about 3 guys yesterday at HuskerBigRed.com. Obviously, I think everybody in Husker world right now wants Will Howard. I don't know how realistic that is, but it does make sense, though. But I also saw Bud Elliott of 24/7 Sports said, like, I don't know if if I was a quarterback, I wouldn't want to play for Marcus Satterfield, which really kind of freaked me out.
Eh,
If that sentiment's out there.
eh.
So
I mean, I don't know. This is also a good time of year. I mean, hell, we do it where we can get clicks because it's the off season and people want attention, and so I wouldn't necessarily take too much stock into that. That to me sounds like more of his opinion. Unless I see definitive reports, I'm not gonna. I'm not saying it's necessarily inaccurate. He could be right, but I tend to throw caution at the wind with statements like that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah, and I think they have a good shot at. And I mean, it seems like Blake Shapen, they have a good shot at. There's enough guys that are going to be looking for starting jobs that there's going to be, they just have to pick the right one, obviously, and they didn't do it last year. But they're still looking at running back for this class. Dylan Riley and Lamar Radcliffe are both expected to visit. Dylan Riley actually is visiting, I think, next week, and I believe the only reason he can do that is because his head coach was fired. So I think he has a little more leeway for visits. I have to double check on that, but still, seems
I
like they're
think
going to
you're correct.
choose.
Yeah.
Seems like they're going to choose between one of those 2 guys, and then Trey Richardson, the return guy, coming like the 16th or 15th. So that's basically where the board is at right now. I
I
know
believe
Amari.
Radcliffe is coming the 16th, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
Yeah, I think the dead period probably ends on the 15th or whatever. But at any rate, those are some guys to watch that weekend. And then Trey Richardson. And that's pretty much, they offered like another cornerback, and I know they've kind of still been looking at Amari Sanders, so maybe they take him or somebody else. But for the most part, I don't see them being that active in the late period. I think it's going to be all transfer portal, and they've got some work to do there, I think.
Which is fine because normally in past years we've been scrambling to just fill out a recruiting class, and it's been like this mad rush. Now I like the idea of just being able to sit back, assess the transfer portal, have a solid class to come in, and have a really really good class, not just a class that fills out the numbers quota in terms of scholarships, but actual playmakers. And I've been waiting for this class. I mean, you know me, I've been talking about it since last or this past summer. I mean, I've been waiting for this class to come in because I believe that this is the class, like I said a couple minutes ago, that will define the tenure of this coaching staff. And the more I look at the schedule for next year, the more I see happening out of Colorado. I mean, I like our chances next year.
I like our yeah. If we get a decent, if we just and Chuba Purdy could be the guy too. I don't think that you can put all your eggs in the basket. So I
That would
mean,
be
they just
unfair to him too, in my opinion.
yeah. And so like yeah, go get somebody that that's been a proven player at this level. And because I think if you do that, I honestly think this team could start 6-0. And I don't want to get
Yeah,
too much into that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that, but it's all there. It's all there on the table. And so yeah, and it's like this team, like we said, it was super unlucky this year, but it's also, unlucky can just be as simple as having a bad quarterback. You know what I mean? It's crazy how, those close games tend to go your way when you have, a better quarterback and you don't turn the ball over so much. So at any rate,
and also
I think
fingers crossed. I hope we don't have the injury misfortunes that we had this year because
yeah, that's
like it or
true.
not, that played a big role in it as well.
Especially, yeah, when you talk about all the guys on offense, yeah, Gabe. I mean, yeah, we could sit there and talk all day about all the walking wounded on offense. So yeah,
AJ Allen
hopefully,
probably would have had more of a role here than he has at Miami because Miami's backfield is loaded. At the end, once Irvin and even Grant was hobbled for a little bit, AJ Allen would have found a spot. Unfortunately for us in this backfield, but to each his own.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and I'm interested to see who Nebraska, winds up targeting in the transfer portal. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about some of the quarterbacks and some of the other guys that we like. So we'll be doing that probably later this week, maybe either Thursday or Friday. But at any rate, guys, unless you have any other thoughts, Danny, we'll probably wrap this up here. But anything you want to close on with the Grant Brix commitment?
Seems like I get more excited in the off season than I do during the season. It's not fair, but I mean, I love this time of year. The rumors, the excitement, the recruiting. I mean, and it just builds up to hopefully a successful 2024 season.
And Matt Rule's building this team the right way, from the inside out. I believe in that. That's
Yeah.
how Nebraska was built when it won games. So big time commitment for Matt Rule. I'm happy to see it. Let's get some positive momentum, and we'll be back soon with another episode here. Make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section, tell us how excited you are for the commitment of Grant Brix, and turn those notifications on because we will be seeing you quite a bit, I think, this offseason. So thanks again for checking us out. Check out HuskerBigRed.com too. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.